fellow learners, in the last two lessons we have learnt about valuation of securities, that is valuation of fixed income securities and valuation of fluctuating income securities. In this lesson as well as the next lesson, we will practice on both of these concepts. So, let us begin with the practice on valuation of equity shares. As you can see, I have taken one example. Dividend on an equity share during the current year is rupees 10 per share. These have a face value 10 each. Dividends are expected to grow at a constant growth rate of 10% per annum infinitely, and an investor is expecting 25% return. Find out at what price this investor should buy the share. So, we can apply the same fundamental learnt in the previous lesson. So, our formula for valuation of equity shares is P0 is equal to D0 multiplied with 1 plus G divided by KE minus G. So, in this case dividend during the current year is 10. So, D0 with us is 10. Growth given in the dividend till infinity year on year is 10% and KE is 25%. So, let us plug in the values in the formula. 10 multiplied with 1 plus 0.10 divided by 0.25 minus 0.10. So, we get it 11 divided by 0.15. So, if we work it out, so 11 divided by 0.15, we get it 73.33. That means this investor is willing to pay maximum 73.33 rupees for this particular equity share. So, that is the simple formula we learnt in the previous session and practiced one more numerical on this one. Let us proceed further. We have something called as multi-stage growth model. Now, in the previous numerical, we have seen the dividends were growing at a constant rate of 10% year on year. But in practice, sometimes during the first few years, dividends will rise or grow at a faster rate, which is also known as supernormal growth rate, and then dividends will stabilize to a normal growth rate called as G. If that kind of situation is there, how do we calculate value of the share? So, supernormal growth period will be there. So, step number 1 will be there with us. So, what we are going to do in this case? We are going to learn the steps if we are given two-stage growth. Initially, dividends are growing at a higher rate and then they are normalizing at the normal rate. So, step number 1 is there. Calculate dividends during supernormal growth period. Suppose initially for 3 years, dividends will grow at the rate of 9% per annum. So, for year 1, year 2 and year 3, calculate dividend per share keeping that growth supernormal growth rate into consideration. And then step number 2, whatever these dividends we have calculated during supernormal growth period, I have taken supernormal growth period is only for 3 years. Sometimes it may be 5 years, 4 years depending upon the question. So, what we will be doing using investors required rate of return, which is KE, we will be calculating present value of all these dividends. So, that will be part A of the answer. So, remind you, calculate dividend per share in rupees during the supernormal growth period, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, whatever period it may be there. Then calculate present value of all those dividends using KE or RE, that is part A of the answer. Then step number 3, we will calculate part B. Calculate the value of equity shares at the end of supernormal growth period. In this case, I have assumed supernormal growth continues for 3 years. It means what we will be doing? We will be calculating P3. Now, as you know, formula with us is like this. P0 equals to D1 divided by KE minus G. So, P3 can be calculated if we know the dividend for the 4th year and that is divided by KE minus G. That is divided by KE minus G. It means we need to find out what is the expected dividend for the 4th year and then plug in the formula and we will get the value, and that will be the price of the share prevailing at the end of 3rd year, and then calculate present value of P3, and that present value of P3 to be calculated using KE, that will be the part B of the answer. And right now the investor will be paying the P0 for the investor is equal to A plus B. So that is a small concept about multi-stage growth model. We can practice numerical on that one. Let us practice one on that one. So what we are given? Current dividend per share is 5%. Growth expected during next 5 years is 10% per annum. That means D0 is given to us 5. And for next 5 years, the dividends are likely to grow at the rate of 10%. That means we will have D1, D2, D3, D4 and D5. These are the dividends to be received. So how much will be the D1? It will be, I can simply write for you, 5 multiplied with 1.1. So we get 5.5. So expected dividend for next year is 5.5. Then what will be the dividend expected for 2nd year? We can simply do it D1 multiplied with 1.1. So 6.05. Similarly, 3rd year's dividend will be 6.05 multiplied with 1.1. So we get it 6.66. 4th year dividend will be 6.66 multiplied with 1.1, 7.32. And 5th year's dividend will be 7.32 multiplied with 1.1, 8.53. That means 8.053. So these are the expected dividends during the supernormal growth period. So present value of all these will be the part A of the answer. And then we can calculate P5. Why I am calculating P5? Because my supernormal growth continues till 5th year. I need to know D6. So after that, dividends are likely to grow at 7%. So what will be my D6? D6 will be simple. D5 multiplied with 1.07, that is 1 plus G. So D5, to remind you, is equal to, D6 is equal to D5 multiplied with 1 plus G. So we get it 8.053 multiplied with 1.07, 8.62. So we are expecting dividend for the 6th year 8.62. Using those parameters, we can solve the numerical. Now you can see dividend for the 5 years as we calculated are given to you. So these are the dividends expected during the supernormal growth period. Investor was expecting 16% rate of return. So we will calculate present value of all those dividends, and these are the time value factors coming from the time value table. Or you can use the formula, because PVIF is equal to 1 upon 1 plus KE raised to the power of n. So what will be the first year's factor? 1.16 raised to the power of 1. So 1 divided by 1.16, 0.862. Similarly, 5th year's factor will be 1 upon 1.16 raised to the power of 5. So 1 upon 1.16 raised to the power of 5, I get 0.476. So these are the factors, time value factors. Either you can use time value table or you can use the formula depicted at this time. Then present value of these dividends. 5 is multiplied with 8.62, we get this. 6.05 is multiplied with this, we get this. Likewise, these are the present value of all these successive 5 dividends, and sum of that is part A. It means whatever dividends are expected during the supernormal growth period, present value of that is 21.38. Then we go for the part 2, P5. Why we are calculating P5? Because my supernormal growth is continuing till 5 years. Thereafter, growth will stabilize to normal rate of 7%. So, we get it D6 is equal to D5 multiplied with 1 plus G. So, 8.06 was my D5 multiplied with 1 plus G. Constant growth rate is 7%. So, we are expecting 6th year's dividend 8.62. Accordingly, we can get P5. So, P5 will be simply P5 is equal to 8.62 divided by 0.16 minus 0.07. That means 8.62 divided by 0.09. So, we get it 95.78. So, that is P5, and present value of P5 is the answer B. It means 95.78 is the expected price at the end of 5th year from now, and present value factor for 5th year is 0.476. So, present value of that turns out to be 45.59. Let me verify it, 45.59. Now, value of this share at time 0, it means P0 is part A plus part B. So, part A was 21.38, part B is 45.59. So, total answer gets 69.97. It means this investor is willing to pay maximum 70 rupees, approximated 70 rupees. So, that is the way when supernormal growth in dividends is given, we find out the value of equity shares. Step 1 is clear, calculate dividends during the supernormal growth period and calculate present value of those. Remind you, present value to be calculated using KE or RE. That PV is A. B part, calculate price which is expected to prevail at the end of supernormal growth period. P5 is equal to D6. If supernormal growth period is up till 4th year, we will be calculating P4. So, we will be using D5 in that case. We will be using D5. So, that depends upon the language and the parameters given in the question. Accordingly, we will calculate present value of that P5, that is the part B, and A plus B becomes P0. So, that is the concept of valuation of equity shares when multi-stage growth in dividends is given. Let us proceed further. What we are given, dividend expected on an equity share is 7. Now, as you can pay attention to the language of the question, dividend expected during the, expected means next year. So, we are given D1 straight away. These have a face value of 5 each. So, face value again right now I do not find any utility. Dividends have been growing at a constant rate of 6%. So, G is 6%. An investor expects a return of 18% per annum. So, KE is 0.18. If this share is being traded in the market at rupees 72 per share, then suggest this investor should he buy it or not. So, we have simple formula, P0 is equal to D1 upon KE minus G. So, we get it. D1 was straightway given to us, KE is also given. So, it is straightforward numerical. So, we get it 7 divided by 0.12. So, what value we are going to get? 7 divided by 0.12, 58.33. So, according to this investor, maximum value for this particular share is 58.33, whereas it is available in the market at 72. So, as explained the fundamental, if CMP, which is 72 in this case, greater than the price we have calculated, then definitely share is overpriced, one should not buy it. Rather, if he is holding it, he can think of selling it so that when price corrects in the future, he can buy it back again. So, in this case, we suggest this investor not to buy at the given price of 72. Now, then again we have one more numerical with us. A company has 1 lakh equity shares of face value 100 each. During the current financial year, the company has earned a profit after tax of 80 lakh rupees. Total net worth of the equity shares is 5 crore rupees. The company has a practice of maintaining dividend payout ratio 30%. So, dividend payout in this case is 30%. So, what we are given? We are given DP ratio 30%, that is 0.30. This can be used to convert into retention ratio. That means 1 minus 0.30, that is 0.70. It means out of the earning per share, 70% is retained by the company for reinvestment purpose. Now, let us calculate EPS, earning per share. We are given profit after tax of the company. So, company has a profit after tax of 80 lakh rupees. And how many shares are there? Only 1 lakh shares. So, rupees 80 per share is the EPS. 1 lakh equity shares of 100 each, and there is profit after tax of 80 lakh rupees. So, we precisely get earning per share 80. It means how much is the dividend for the current year? So, it will be 80 rupees multiplied by 30%, 24. So, current dividend per share, that is D0, is 24. So, whenever dividend payout is given, how do we calculate the dividend per share? So, DPS is simple, EPS multiplied by dividend payout ratio. So, our EPS was 80 rupees, dividend payout is 30%, so 24 is the dividend. Now, we can calculate ROE also, because in this case we have not been provided the data about the constant growth in dividends. So, that constant growth we have to calculate by using the formula G equals to B multiplied with R. So, B is there with us 0.70, R which is ROE we have to calculate. Now, what is my ROE? ROE formula is simple. In this case again we assume there is no preference dividend, PAT upon net worth. So, profit after tax is 80 lakhs, and what is my net worth? 5 crore. So, it works out to 16%. So, we can say ROE of the company is 16%. Now, we can very well calculate G, 0.7 multiplied with 16%, 0.7 times 0.16, we get it 0.112, 0.112, also spoken as 11.2%. So, constant growth in this case is 11.2%. Now, if we are given investors required rate of return, then definitely we can further work out the things. Investor is expecting 30%. So, remember D0 we have 24, constant growth is 11.2%, and investor is expecting 30% return. We can work out the price of the share. So, we have D0 24, G is 11.2% and KE is 30%. Apply the formula P0 equals to D0 multiplied with 1 plus G divided by KE minus G. So, we have 24 multiplied with 1 plus 0.112 divided by 0.3 was the expected rate of return and minus 0.112. If we calculate the values, 24 times 1.12, 112, 26.69 is the expected dividend for next year, that is D1, divided by 0.188. So 26.69 divided by 0.188, 141.97. So this investor is ready to pay maximum this price for the given share. So that is how, if growth is not given, by using the handy formula or simple formula, G is equal to B multiplied by R. B stands for retention ratio and R is the return on equity of the company. How ROE is calculated, that is R. ROE is simply, we can calculate profit after tax minus preference dividend. So in our case, preference dividend was not given, divided by net worth of the company or equity net worth of the company, we will get ROE. So dear learners, that is the simple concept we have practiced in this practice session, how to value the equity shares. In the next session, we will learn about practicing on the valuation of fixed income securities, that is debentures and the preference shares. Thank you.